Welcome back to the Greenlight Investor for the week ending October 16, 2015. Our goal at the Greenlight Investor is to provide a resource to make managing your 401k both a simple and easy process. We do this by updating a worksheet each week by using red, green, and yellow cells to help you determine when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as personal investment advice. The examples I'm going to be showing are exactly that. They're examples of how you can use this worksheet to help make fund choices within your 401k. Please refer to your own investment policy to make certain that the choices you're making are appropriate for both your investment time horizon as well as your understanding and acceptance for taking risk in financial markets. With that said, let's go ahead and go right into our worksheet. On the left side, we'll have the investment choices, and they're set up by fund number. The next column is the symbol, fund name, and finally a description of the fund. The categories are set up where the core investments are at the top. Those are your index funds. And if you click on any of these hyperlinks, it'll take you to an outside resource where you can do additional research on any of these funds. The research will include some of the top holdings, so you'll get a chance to see what stocks are in each of the funds. As we scroll down, we'll go into our satellite investments, and those start out with the more conservative funds, the money market and fixed income at the top, and they get progressively more aggressive as we move down. We'll go into the U.S. growth and income funds, the U.S. equity, international funds, and sector funds. Next, we'll update the performance for each of the funds each week. We'll show the closing price, the month to date, quarter to date, and the year to date return. This is important so that when you open your 401k statements, you'll have an idea of how your funds have been performing against other funds on this worksheet, as well as the other funds in the categories that you have allocations in. Finally, we'll go to the right side of the worksheet, and this is what I think is the most interesting part and the unique part of the worksheet, and that's the current weekly trends. This is all focused right around column V, which shows the relative strength trend change on a week-over-week basis. Each week we'll highlight the funds that have done the best and the ones that have been performing the worst on a week-over-week basis. Stronger funds will be given the brightest green lights, and the weakest funds will be given a bright red light. If they're somewhere in between, it'll be a lighter color of either red or green. And then each week we'll also keep track on a week-over-week basis of this cumulative running total of scores. When the trend is negative, we assign it a trend score that will be negative, and that'll show up with a red cell. When it moves over to positive and we're showing some positive relative strength, the cell will change to green, and that will show that that fund is outperforming. We generally like to see two green cells in a row in column V, or to the right of column V, in W and X. When we see two green lights to the right, that's generally a sign that the fund is strengthening. We also like to see a confirmation that the long-term trend is bullish, or at least neutral. We definitely don't like to see the red bearish signs in that. So that's what we look for to make an allocation to any of the funds. So as we scroll down this worksheet, we can see that there's, right now in the fixed income, we have red cells. We don't have any two cells in a row that are green. And to the left in the long-term trend, they're all bearish, so there's no reason to go into any of these. With the growth in income, we've seen a lot of red. So again, until we see two green cells to the right of column V and a yellow or a green cell accompanying that in column U, we're going to stay away from this part of the market. As we go to the U.S. equity funds, we're seeing that we do have a couple of bullish cells, but they have two red cells. So again, we don't want to be entering new capital into this fund yet. And in fact, these funds, we'll go over this in a minute, but we do have capital allocated to this. So this is our early warning when we see two red cells appear. As soon as this turns yellow or red, that will be our signal to go ahead and exit this fund. As we continue to scroll down, we'll see that the international funds have been negative, although with the brighter green lights and the yellow lights, we're seeing that this has been relatively stronger than most of the other funds. So again, we'll be looking to see two of these cells in column W and X turn green, so that's a 2-week process. As we see those progress to green lights and have strengthening numerical values in these, we'll look to allocate capital to these. And the same on the bottom. This fund here, we actually do have capital allocated, and the reason is that we're seeing at least 2 green cells accompanied by a long-term, and in this case we have the intermediate and short-term confirmation. So this is what we like to see and what we like to keep the capital allocated into. So that's a good example of something that's bucking the trend, and that's our real estate funds. So with that as a primer, let's go ahead and see how we can actually use this to make choices or help you make choices for managing your 401k investments. To go ahead and go to a different version or a different view of this worksheet, we'll click on View and Custom Views. Then we'll go to My Current Allocation and click Show. This will take you to a different layout that will help you look at how your funds are allocated within within your 401k. Please keep in mind that this doesn't change, this worksheet will not change the allocations for you, it just keeps track of them. To actually change your allocations, you'll have to go to your website at work on your own computer and log in and physically make the changes yourself. But if you keep track of what changes you make using this worksheet, it's a real easy way to keep track of how things are going on a week-over-week basis. Right, and to go ahead and use this to help make choices within your 401k, you'll simply use the slider and move the current weekly trends over so that they're right next to the My Selection column H on this worksheet. Then as we scroll down, we'll see that we can set our target allocations. And for an example, we have a 10% allocation to the money market funds, but the yellow cell will show what the actual allocation is, and that's a 50% allocation. And we've done that again because we have moved capital from a number of the different funds out of the market over to money market, and we're waiting or in funds that have been showing some green relative strength. Let's continue to scroll down and see how we're doing. We have a 5% allocation that we're set for, but again in the yellow cell we're showing our actual numbers, and that's showing that we have a 0% allocation. The reason for that is because we have a lot of red to the right and we do not have any green cells showing up under the long-term trend. Next, let's go down to our equity funds. Here we have, in the U.S. equities, we have a 30% allocation. We're currently allocated with 20% of our capital in this category. The 20% is showing that we still have a green light, but as we mentioned earlier, we've now seen 2 weeks in a row, so that's an early warning flag that we may want to exit this. If we see, that's our blue chip fund, so if we see this next week where we see a red cell appear in column W, and in our long-term trend column U we turn to yellow or we turn to red, at that point we'll go ahead and confirm that we have the decision to exit this fund and look for something better. As we scroll down a little farther, we're going to see that we have a 30% allocation that we would like to have in the international funds. We only have a 20% allocation, and this 20% allocation is currently in the T. Rowe Price International Discovery Fund. So when we look at this one here, we're seeing a similar situation. I believe last week we decided to go in because we saw a green light and it looked like this was strengthening. It hasn't proven to do that on this week-over-week basis, so we're going to be in the same situation as we are in the U.S. equity fund. If we see a red light appear next week and our green light disappears, our long-term trend turns neutral or bearish, we'll exit this fund and look for either a money market or another fund that's showing 2 weeks of green. And finally, we're down at where we set our allocation to the sector funds. Here we'd like to have 15% set. We currently have 10% in this allocation, and the 10% is in the T. Rowe Price Real Estate Fund. The reason we entered this again is we saw at least 2 green lights in column W and X, and we saw a green light in the column, the long-term trend of column U. So with that, there's nothing to do on this worksheet. This one's just fine. The international and the U.S. equity funds are the one we'll be looking at next week. If those change to bearish or neutral and remain with red lights to the right, we'll be changing those allocations. And again, remember, to actually change the allocations, you'll have to go to your website and physically make the changes on that website, the company website for your 401k. This is just a method to track and decide which choices you may want to be in. With that said, let's go ahead and go back to our worksheet. We'll go to Custom Views, and there's a number of different custom views you can take. We're going to go with the performance columns again. We'll click Show, and we're back to our home page for the worksheet. That's what I've got for this week. I hope it's been helpful and has given you some ideas and some resources to help make choices within your 401k plan. If you'd like to find out any additional information or have a copy of this worksheet either sent to you or you can visit our website at greenlightinvestor.org and download a copy to yourself, your own computer. You'll be able to go ahead and look at the worksheet and learn to use it to help make choices within your 401k. I hope this has been helpful. And again, if you have any questions, you can always email me. Otherwise, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your weekend to go through your 401k plan with me. Thank you for watching, and have a great week.